Hi there, Let's Talk Sports fans. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Dan Harris Show, and I'm joined by a regular voice on this network, Chris Miller. Thanks for joining me today.
Oh, no problem. Thanks for having me.
No problem at all. So, Chris, for anyone who ain't checked out your content, if you tell everyone a little about it, because it's if you don't mind me saying so, a little unique, not just a straight sports podcast.
Yeah, it's definitely not just sitting and going over sports. It's basically it came down to we had when the COVID shutdown happened and there was no sports to talk about. I'm a high school coach. Several of my buddies, obviously, their seasons are done and over with, and there's nothing really to do. We all kind of got together and said, hey, it'd be really fun is just if we just sit around and talk about sports and let's just record it. And there was a local guy who was doing live stream at the time for local high schools, and he started producing it for us. And that's kind of where it was born out of. And the whole concept was instead of being, reporting on sports, we would just have the idea of the show is basically it's like you and your buddies sitting around drinking beer and talking about sports. And there is some important information that we do put out there. We do try to highlight some of our local high school kids and programs at times. But the main idea behind it is we just wanted to have a show where everybody could see just how it was with. It's almost like you interacting with your friends, and it's probably more entertainment than it is sports at times. But at the same time, we have fun doing it, and we just finished our 150th episode of our show, so we're pretty proud of it.
Yeah, I thought it was a unique podcast when we touch base. Obviously, it's always nice to get the viewpoint from a coach's perspective. And yeah, it's amazing how many people on this network set up during the COVID era, if you will. I mean, for myself, I know I did just because I suffer from confidence. So I wanted to do a sports podcast for a while, but as I always say, I guess boredom run out over nervousness.
Well, it's funny. I mean, I've been in teaching and coaching for over 18, 19 years, I think, something like that. That's when I've lost count. But I don't even like doing public speaking. I don't. They never did like talking to the media because I always felt like there was something I was going to say that was going to turn around and maybe be used against me by another coach or something like that. So that's one of the things on our podcast is we don't do any kind of coach talk. We don't use those cliches. It's kind of the tagline of the show is we call it like we see it, and we invite guests on. We just tell them like, look, we're not going to do that kind of coach speak thing. If you're going to be on, you're going to have to answer questions or you're going to have to be a part of it. Otherwise, it's just not going to be engaging. It's not going to be fun, and that's kind of the point of the whole thing. So I think it's grown in popularity. We have over 3,000 YouTube subscribers at this point, and there's some other things that we're looking to do to grow. But I think a lot of that came out of COVID, and I know that we weren't the only one. I see a lot of really great podcasts on you guys' network. So we're happy to be a part of it, and people tune in and watch and get a good laugh out of it. That's the most important thing for us.
Yeah, I agree with that. So you mentioned there a few things you want to achieve. I was going to ask you the next question. Is there anything what you'd like to achieve going forward? I know a lot of people, the dream would be maybe sports radio, something like that. Is there something that you'd like to achieve with the podcast going forward?
I mean, if we've kind of talked about it, we have sponsorship for our shows and our podcast itself. It's really cheap, and again, talking about the COVID shutdown, we had a lot of local businesses that were struggling, and we wanted to make sure that we try to help them out. So I mean, our sponsorship started out extremely cheap. It was just like enough to let's keep the lights on kind of thing for us, that we could continue doing it, because it does cost a little bit of money to put on a podcast. But at the same time, I mean, we've always said that we're going to, no matter what happens, if it takes off and people watch it and we have a big following, nothing changes as far as the way we want to do things. Where we love for people around the country to watch it, sure, and we have people who tune in from different parts of the country. We have people who have relatives or whatever. Sometimes they'll tune in from different states, and they'll comment on the show, and that's a lot of fun to see people interact. And we just like for people to enjoy being a part of that. We don't have any major dreams of becoming famous. I think we're just happy with what we do in that aspect. And if it ends up that a lot of people get a chance to watch us, have fun, giving each other crap and talking some sports, that's awesome. That's great.
Yeah, I agree from my point of view. Look, the biggest advancement I like is opportunity, so you can get even more guests, cooler guests on. I know from experience, if you have a sponsor, it's easier to get maybe ex-pros or bigger name coaches, just because even if they don't want a fee, they want to know if you've got sponsorship, because it just comes with a bit of validation from guest eyes. So that's what I look for, not necessarily money, just because that's not something what I do it for. So it's really just a case of getting my name out there would be the biggest aim I have.
Yeah, and it's never that's definitely something that we've talked about. It's never really been about making any kind of money. We've had some really cool guests on our show that are maybe more in Missouri, especially with basketball coaches. We've had a couple of Missouri basketball coaches, Hall of Fame members, who've been on our show. We've had the National Association of Basketball Coaches president. He has been on our show. So those things are really neat, and we do like having that. We would like at some point to have maybe some bigger name guests, I guess you could say. And I agree with you. I think that big sponsorship goes a long way. It's kind of a validation of what you've created. But at the same time, I mean, if we never achieve that, I don't think we would ever say that, hey, this has been a complete failure, because I think the fact that we're still on the air and we haven't been kicked off the air, I think that's definitely a positive. And I've been doing it now and self-producing actually for the last year and a half, 2 years. So, like I said, we're happy with what we have, and I think there's some good things happening. And if it works out, great. And if not, it just wasn't meant to be. But we'll continue on.
Yeah, I agree with that. So before we move on, um, everyone, don't forget to follow Chris, check out his page, slash podcast, part of Let's Talk Sports. So if you want to support me, support Chris and his guys, because by supporting him, you're supporting Let's Talk Sports. So please check Chris out for his other podcast. And if you do check it out, why not comment saying that support or help in the comment? And also, Chris would love to hear from you.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't forget to check out our Facebook, YouTube channels, and like I said, we appreciate Let's Talk Sports allowing us to be a part of this, because we trying to help other podcasts, other shows, and I've seen a lot of really great podcasts since we've been a part of this, and being able to share and see. And sometimes you get to have an opportunity to see some of the stuff other people do, and try to improve your craft, and that's what we want to try to do. Is just we're still trying to have fun, but we want it to be aesthetically pleasing to people, for them to see it, for them to enjoy watching it. And we're always trying to find little ways to tweak and be better.
Yep, I love that. And moving to your teams, I know you guys are mostly Arizona sports guys. Is that right?
Yeah, we have high school. It's basically, it started out with three high school coaches and one of the local broadcasters. It became 4 high school coaches. Now we have six high school coaches, or 5 high school coaches, and one media member slash athletic director slash coach, whatever you want to call them. But we're all high school people. We've been around high school sports for a long time in our area, and we just try to always bring that perspective. There's a lot of times where we'll talk about those things that are going on in high school sports, high school basketball, rules changes, trends, things dealing with parents. And sometimes it's informative. Sometimes we have a unique take because we will tell some stories at times. But that's kind of what it is. It's just a bunch of guys who've been in education and been in coaching for the last 15 to 20 years, and we just like to share our experience.
Yeah, I love that. We've got a few different coaches on the network, and I love having that. Obviously, someone you collab with, Rob Logan. He coaches his son's basketball team, and he was very impressed with you. I know he had some connection issues, but he was so impressed with you, very keen to do it again. So I love that we can connect different coaches, different sports people.
Yeah, and Rob was really, really great. I enjoyed talking to him, and I think we actually got started with the podcast late because we were talking about high school basketball before we went on the air, and I think it was like, well, hey, we got to jump on. So it's really fun to talk to people like that, and then you get these unique perspectives from all over the place when you have that. And with the guys that I do the podcast with on the Coaches Box, Riley Blair and Jason Jarvis, they both coach at a rival school. So we started the show basically with guys that coached against each other. And Zach McVeigh, who was my assistant coach for the last couple of years, he's on the show. So it's almost like there's this obvious divide between rival high schools, but we're all still friends and we all still get along, and we all feed off of each other, and we've become so much better friends than we were when everything started because of the show and because of the opportunities to interact and help each other out. What Jason Jarvis, his son, was going through some health treatments when he was born, and he was having a rough time, and we ended up raising over, I think it was $5,500 from our show just to help with some of his medical expenses. And the people that follow our show and they're a part of it, they really pitched in and jumped in, and I think that brought some of those things like that kind of brought us really close as not as friends, but I mean, doing the podcast, it just makes things so much better if we can help each other out. And again, we started it it's 4 guys that are buddies talking sports. We wanted to help small businesses, and then obviously, when your brother's in need, you want to help them out too. So it's kind of become a little bit of a family, and we stick together pretty well.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, we've done our fair share of a few charity events just because, so I find it a nice fit in knowing that about you because I speak a lot about community, and I'm a firm believer in you can't speak it without doing it. So I love that you created a bit of a community atmosphere there, helping where you could, and that's what it's all about.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So before we talk the Cardinals a little bit, Um, Alec Simpson drops by, says, great show to you both. Alec is one of my fellow UK contributors. He somewhat created a niche for himself, talking flag football and getting a lot of great feedback. So, should you get a chance, be sure to check his show out.
I love me some flag football. Love to get back into
Um,
doing more stuff like that.
it's one of those, so through doing the show, Alec has taken up the sport again. He sort of, um, let slide a little bit. He refereed what you call soccer at a decent level, obviously young family, but in interviewing some of his players, it sort of pushed him back into doing it. So quite an interesting journey there.
That's awesome.
Um, So the Cardinals, I talk about them a fair bit because one of the shows I do is Let's Talk Everything Sports with one of our contributors. So I guess the best question to ask you is, what's your take? Are they tanking? Is it just a victim of circumstance where players want out because it ain't gone too well? Because I kind of think they are tanking because they feel now's the right time for a roster reset. What's your opinion?
Did you? You're cutting out a little bit. Did you say the Knicks?
No, the Cardinals, are they
Oh, the
tanking?
Cardinals. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Um,
No problem.
oh gosh, it's boy, that's a sore subject after last night's 6-1 debacle against the Mets. Um, I think there's a lot of problems within the organization. I mean, it obviously starts at the top with the general manager, John Mozeliak. And I think I can speak for a lot of the guys on our podcast and then the people in our area where John Mozeliak has won a World Series. He basically won a World Series with Walt Jocketty's team. He's also taken another team, been a general manager of a team that went to the World Series and lost to the Red Sox. But he kind of has an arrogance about him that he's not ever wrong, and we make fun of it quite a bit about he tells the fan base that they need to be patient. And I know probably a lot of people from the outside looking in are looking at the Cardinals thinking, well, you guys are spoiled because you constantly win. You could be like the Pirates, you could be like the Reds, you could be like some of these other teams that aren't winning. And the fans in St. Louis, I mean, they come out in droves. It's not like the fans in Tampa Bay who have such a good team that nobody shows up and watches them. And then in some of these other places that you see all these empty seats, the Cardinals attendance is astronomical, and the support throughout the Midwest for the St. Louis Cardinals. I mean, I'm in Kansas City right now, and I see more Cardinals stuff on people's bumper stickers and different things than I do the Royals. It's that big of a thing. So we're really proud of our team, and it's not like they operate like a small market team. So Mozeliak is constantly not wanting to spend money. The DeWitts who own the team, they don't want to spend any money. The scouting has not been very good. I don't think we've looked at our talent, our young talent, the way that and evaluated the way that other teams would look at it. But that's why we don't have the prospects that other teams do. And if you watch some of the minor league games that we have, our minor league teams are getting annihilated by the Dodgers affiliates. So and there's a reason why, is because we don't do a very good job of that. So it's kind of starting to catch up with us where we don't have that kind of talent. We don't have that kind of leadership. And Marmol, he's a young guy. And I know that everybody came out the other day and backed him on the off day, and Arenado, Goldschmidt, everybody's talking about how much they respect Oli Marmol, and that's great and fine. And as a coach, you want your guys at least publicly say that. But I think within the locker room, Marmol's also done some things that I don't, as a coach, I definitely wouldn't do. I would never call out a person, even if it's a professional I was coaching, in the media, and he's done that with Tyler O'Neill early on. He's obviously made a couple of poor decisions managing within the game and how he handles things. But ultimately, it all does start at the top. And we just don't have very good pitching. We just don't have a very good philosophy. And I've said it many times. Baseball, I understand analytics. I use analytics in high school basketball. I try to find trends. I try to find different things like, hey, this is where we're shooting from better. And I understand baseball is married to analytics in some cases. I think at the end of the day, it's like you still have to trust your gut and use your eye test. Use the eye test, and you can't use a calculator to manage a baseball team or to run a baseball organization. At some point, you got to have some dudes that can play, and we just don't have enough dudes that can play. We don't utilize the international market. Nobody wants to come to St. Louis anymore as a free agent, so we've missed out on a bunch of guys who we could get. We don't want to spend the money. There's just no draw for them, and if we don't have changed that, then and we don't learn how to scout like say the Rays do. The Rays do a fantastic job of scouting with their small payroll. If we don't do that, we're in trouble. And I don't really think they're necessarily trying to tank, but at this point now, I think it's with the 70 games that's been played. I don't think it's a retool trying to make the playoffs at this point. I think it's we need to probably trade off some of our pieces that we have, try to get some younger talent, try to move some of those guys that are going to be going to free agency. Jack Flaherty is gone. There's no way that we're going to probably re-sign him. Jordan Montgomery, I don't think he'll want to stay. I think we should trade him and try to get something back for these guys, some good young talent. But the problem is, if we don't evaluate talent very well, I'm not sure we're going to get anybody that's any good in return anyway. So we're kind of, until some big major changes are made from the top down. And I mean, I hate saying it, I never want to see anybody lose their job. But John Mozeliak, probably, I think we've kind of run its course here. And at some point, given how the Cardinals have played, I think somebody has to probably lose their job in order for there to be some kind of shakeup, because right now nothing is changing. The guys can come out and say that they support Oli Marmol, and I'm not saying that he should get fired, but somebody is going to have to lose their job or get traded or something. And George Steinbrenner would have already traded everybody away and burned his team to the ground 3 times by the time that this point in the season's rolled around, if he was running the show like he was back in the day. So there's a lot that needs to be changed. I know Cardinal Nation is completely frustrated. I know I've sat here and ranted for about the last 5 minutes about it, because that's my childhood team, that's my hometown team, and we're really proud of what we have. And this is not good baseball. It's embarrassing. And I kind of know what it feels like maybe to be a Pirates fan or to be one of these other teams, but just because. But at the same time, it's something that's got to change.
Yeah, I agree, and I do agree with you. I know people hate on analytics, but analytics is not the problem. It is a tool. It is a good tool, but like anything, it's like using video replays. It's only as good as the person using it, and it is human nature for people not to be perfect. So I fully understand that no one's flawless all the time, but if you are slave to analytics and use it without common sense, then it's not any better than making mistakes just the old-fashioned way. So whereas you use analytics, you still use the eye test as a coach. I've never coached, so I obviously can't speak from that level, but I do know you can't like pull a picture just based on the stats. I think you use the stats and make the decision yourself. Perhaps I'm wrong with that. You can speak far better about that than I can.
Well, I think that again, you're talking about trying to make a decision. At what point then is the manager obsolete? We're just going to punch it in a computer and it's going to tell me what I need to do. And so I can go find a guy who can do that and print off a thing saying, okay, here's what we do. And that's managing baseball in 2023. I mean, Dave Roberts had a kid who's thrown a no-hitter in his first game, and he pulls him after 79 pitches. I mean, let a guy go. I get it. You don't want to hurt him, but at the same time, it's baseball, and that's what he's trained to do, is to go out there and pitch. And obviously, if they brought him up, they think he's ready to go. He's not been pitching, 2 and 3 innings in the minor leagues. He's been throwing full games, or he's extended per se. And this whole third time through the lineup crap, I think it's ridiculous. Let guys go. Let them throw. Let them play. Trust your gut. And we had a couple minor league guys who joined our show a while back. Michael Brewer, who's still with the Rangers organization because he's a hometown kid, and Alec Casena, who was with the New York Mets and in their minor league system. And they were talking about all of the information that they have available to them as far as scouting the lineups. And this is in the minor leagues even. And he showed it to me. It's just an enormous amount of information. It's almost like information overload for some of these guys. And at whatever point, I said, well, when you get to a situation where you got to decide, do I pitch this guy, a slider away, or do you give him your best pitch when you need to give him your best pitch? And he said, look, your pitching coach will tell you when you get in that situation, you're going to use the information, but you need to be able to trust what you have. And that's what you need to be able to do. And not all organizations are like that. They're not just going to say, hey, just go out there, and if you think you can take him, drop down a finger and throw the fastball and wipe this guy out, boom, take it. They're going with what the computer says. And I don't think you can do that. The Mets, I was watching the Once Upon a Time in Queens documentary, and Davey Johnson puts in Lenny Dykstra against a left-hander. I mean, that's not on just a pinch hit situation. Obviously, it worked out for them, but you're not going to see that nowadays because everybody's going to trust the splits, or we're going to go with the lefty righty matchup. I mean, La Russa used analytics when he was here, but like you said, they were a tool. Him and Dave Duncan used analytics as a tool, not as the end all be all. This is what we're going to do. And the Cardinals have found their way and married into analytics to the point where it's absolutely ridiculous. It's annoying, it's terrible, and it's not good baseball. I mean, we were hitting solo home runs. We might hit 3 home runs in a game and lose 8-3. So I don't think you can do that, and I think we're definitely seeing the repercussions of that kind of thinking at this point.
Yeah, I agree with that. Very interesting conversation because I remember me and Rob was talking a few weeks back, and the teams with the highest amount of strikeouts aren't the teams what maybe rest their pitchers more so, or health for that matter. So, is it a hindrance pulling the players too early? I think you can argue that. I do feel that maybe teams have to take a step back and examine how they use analytics. And no, not get rid of analytics because it's not analytics what is the problem. It's just not being able to use them.
And
Um,
I think you touched on. I'm sorry, you touched on a good point there because I don't think they can't do away with them because you obviously have to
no,
have those to see the trends, to see those things. But as baseball, things in baseball are like culture anyway. Things come and go, and new trends and things like that. At whatever point, we'll probably go back to the station to station baseball game where you got a couple guys who can get on base, whether that's by walk or by hitting the ball into play and getting on base, and then having somebody drive them in. It's really hard to find a baseball player who's going to hit 30 home runs and drive in 150. I can't remember the last time you've seen somebody who did that and then did it consistently. And it's because everybody's going for that true outcome. It's either the home run or you're striking out. Well, at the end of the day, I got to be able to put runners on. That's going to put pressure on pitching. That's going to allow us to drive more runs in, and you just don't see it. I mean, you're hitting solo home runs, or you're getting out, or you're striking flyouts, or you're striking out. You don't have guys in front of you. You're obviously not going to put up crooked numbers. So, and I could go on for days about this, man. It drives me nuts.
oh yeah, I get that, and trust me, and it's not baseball what's just the problem. In soccer over here in the UK and the Premier League, we have a problem with using technology as an aid for the referee. So don't get English sports fan started on that. We could be here for days. Chris, I know you're a bit tied up for time, but I just want to switch gears, get to know you a bit better. And I always ask all my guests sports movies. In your opinion, what is the best sports movie ever made?
Oh gosh. Well, I'm obviously I love basketball. You hear me talk about baseball, I probably sound like I'm pretty passionate about that. Hoosiers to me is the best sports movie that I've ever seen. It's obviously based on a true story. There's a lot of really cool stuff that when I've been a small high school basketball coach for the last 19 20 years, whatever it's been. I can't even remember now, but there's a lot of similarities to some of these situations that are in that movie that I've experienced, and the kids when they watch it, I always try to let my team watch a little bit here, like we're gonna watch Hoosiers today, kind of thing, and there's a lot of stuff that they can take from it. It's such an important movie, I think culturally, especially for my sport, in rural basketball in America, because you do see those same things, even though it's a story based in the 50s. So I always think it's probably the best sports movie of all time. I do like Rocky. That's just a personal favorite of mine, and uh, Field of Dreams, obviously with being with baseball. If I want a good laugh, I'm going to watch Major League though. I probably can quote Major League. all the way through and back the other way. So it's I have a thing for sports movies. They're great for me.
Yeah, I agree. To be honest, there's not many sports movies I can't watch. If you press me for favorite, I watch 42, probably close to once a month, just because um it again it's a true story, and just big Jackie Robinson fan, and not even based on anything he did on the field, what he did, laying the groundwork for future generations, what he must have endured. I can't appreciate as a white man, but I can certainly respect what he did.
Absolutely, that's a really good movie too. That doesn't
Yeah,
get a lot of as much publicity as I think it should. Another one I like that you just don't hear anybody talk about anymore is 61, and
yeah,
just the what Roger Maris had to endure trying to break Bruce's record too. Just movies like that that talk. I mean, for me, sports parallel life and the struggle of humanity and those sort of things. So when you see it, I like good documentaries. I like good docu movies, kind of like 42 a little bit, because I think it's important for people to actually see what these individuals had to go through, whatever their struggle was, whether it was race, whether it was media pressures, like say Roger Maris, whether it's local pressures with people in authority, like say Hoosiers. I mean, there's all kinds of different struggles that people can relate with and how they had to overcome it. And I think with our youth today, I mean, I like always going back to the youth part with our kids. It, for them to be able to see that this is something that you can overcome. This is something you can do when you power through and you believe in yourself and just stuff like that. I mean, I love it. I don't get teared up too much on a lot of things, but I'll tell you what, a great sports movie. I mean, just oh yeah. I mean, it'll definitely. I can feel the welling in my eyes when I watch a really good one, and sometimes it'll be the same one I've seen, 100 times or 1,000 times, but it still does it.
yeah, yeah. I completely agree. So, Chris, last question before I'll let you go. What is the maddest you've ever been as a sports fan? Is there one moment that stands out for you?
What's the maddest I've ever been as a sports fan? Was that the question that you're cutting out again?
Yeah, 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 yeah. Basic.
I can tell you the maddest I've ever been, and it's not even remotely close. Is when uh, the Cleveland Indians and the Chicago Cubs were playing in the World Series in Game 7, and when the Cubs won the series and they're celebrating, and I'm watching it on my couch, and I have a laminate hardwood floor. I I had one of those good Samsung phones that's supposed to be indestructible. I say that you obviously see where I'm going with this. And I was so mad that I turned and said a word I probably shouldn't have, and I threw that thing down on the floor, and it bounced at least 5 feet off the ground, and it never worked again. And that was an $800 mistake, and it makes me hate the Cubs even more than what I do. I absolutely despise the Cubs. I will have to say I've been to Wrigley and watched the Cardinals play the Cubs. The people in Chicago, those fans. I sat in the bleachers. I wore a Cardinal shirt, big red Cardinal shirt that said my ex-wife is a Cubs fan, and those people were great. I have nothing against. They have. There's a fandom that they have. There was a long struggle that they had before they won a World Series. But as a Cardinals fan, I absolutely despise the Cubs, and to see them celebrate and to see them win, and the fact that they've won now, sooner than what the Cardinals have won a World Series, it definitely steamed my grits per se at that point in time. Where, yeah, that's probably the maddest I've ever been.
Yeah, I get that. Always nice to just hear people's answer. Always a different answer. Probably the most common answer I've got is involves Bill Belichick. So, yeah, always nice to hear a different answer.
Yeah, I can see that being a thing. I'll be honest with you, I didn't really want the Giants to win when they played the Patriots in the Super Bowl. I always liked Tom Brady, even when he beat when the Rams were in St. Louis. Well, I love the Rams. Kurt Warner was awesome. I mean, just being a St. Louis Rams fan, which I can't stand them now. I could go on that one too. But I love Tom Brady. I just liked his story and what he became, and then to watch the Giants beat him. I didn't. When David Tyree caught that, I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is terrible." And it was a great catch, a great moment in sports, and I got a chance to watch, obviously watch that and remember that. But yeah, it does not compare to watching the Cubs, win the World Series at any point in my life. I've ever been more mad than that.
Yeah, I get that. And before we wrap things up, have you got anything special planned on the channel you want to promote or anything like that?
I just encourage everybody if they get a chance to go to the Coach's Box, call it like we see it, YouTube channel or Facebook page. Make sure you like, subscribe, check some of our stuff out. We do try to put some content on shorts. We have a TikTok that we try. I end up doing a lot of it myself, so it does take time for me to sometimes get some of that stuff out there. People do like it, obviously, and but we are partnered with a couple of different entities. The High School Sports Caravan, Jim Powers, who's a member of our show, at times he does a lot with the Fox station in St. Louis as far as prep's concerned, and we're looking to do some stuff with him to kind of cover some of these high school athletes in the St. Louis metro area and in Jefferson County, where we're from, which is just south of St. Louis, where there's a lot of really good sports that doesn't get the media coverage. And we're going to probably look into kind of moving into that point where we're going to try to highlight those athletes, because at the end of the day, we like having fun and talking sports and ripping on each other, which is the purpose of our show. But we have an opportunity to really get out and do some of those things that, I mean, we got into coaching not for us to be recognized or anything like that, but to help these young kids achieve their goals and to get the recognition that they deserve. So we're going to probably be looking to do more of that as far as Off the Rails Media, and which is our parent company of the Coach's Box. We're going to be doing a little bit of that with Jim Powers, and hopefully we can get some of that out there. So maybe some underprivileged kids don't have the opportunity to have, get streamed and maybe some of the games broadcasted, or at least be recognized on our show, where they can send things out to college coaches and recruiters. And then obviously just maybe a couple of other little podcasts here and there that we're thinking about doing. We talked about doing a soccer show at times at some point. So hopefully we can get all that lined out and taken care of and move forward.
Yeah, looking forward to all of that. Everyone, don't forget to check out the show. As Chris said, they just had their 150th show, so why not check that out? Watch the guys having fun, talking sports, and be sure to check it out. And Chris, all what remains is for me to thank you for coming on. I've had a great time talking with you.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
No problem at all, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us. I go live at 5 p.m. Eastern Time with Let's Talk About It. Johnny Cruz is joining me, talking anything and everything, a little sports, some pop trivia, so Star Wars, Marvel, that sort of thing, and also our good news segment where we spread a little bit of good news from the world of sports. So be sure to check us out tonight. And until then, let's talk sports fans. Thanks for joining us.